Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where it is you are joining us for this 52nd episode of the EQ Lunch and Learn series. It's hard to believe that we've had that many, but we have, and we're excited to have you here today for yet another conversation that I know will be lit. Um, February often invites us to think about love in outward ways, but sustainable leadership starts closer to home. And so, in this episode of the EQ Lunch and Learn, we're exploring what it means to lead with self respect in demanding professional environments. Self respect shows up in the boundaries that you set, the standards you uphold, and the choices you make under pressure. It's not a soft concept, it is actually a strategic one. When self respect is missing, leadership can quietly drift into overextension, blurred boundaries, and decision making that is driven by desire to seek approval rather than purpose. And over time, this can take a toll on your well being, confidence, and effectiveness at work. And so today, with my esteemed guest, we will be exploring how self respect shapes everyday leadership choices, including the boundaries and expectations that we set at work. We will talk a little bit about where self respect may be compromised and the impact this has on well being and effectiveness. And we'll talk about some shifts that we can all make, practical shifts to lead with greater clarity, confidence, and sustainability. So, welcome. This will be another great session, and I'm really delighted that you have chosen to be here. For those of you who will watch this later, feel very welcome too. As always, I have a fabulous panel who are going to help to unpack this, and I'm delighted to bring back on stage someone who is not a stranger to you all, someone who works very closely with me, Susan Chege, who has been here multiple times. She is an accomplished HR professional coach, and she is currently the GM East Africa at PTS Africa. Oh, I'm so excited when I say that. She has over 18 years of experience across industries, including insurance, aviation, manufacturing, logistics, property management, and hospitality. And now, with the focus on what we refer to as the soft skills that aren't really so soft, Susan is passionate about coaching, helping individuals realize their potential and find their glimmer. She combines soft power with strategic tough love, bringing energy, humor, and wholehearted commitment to her work. When we invite our panelists, we also ask them to share with us their LinkedIn profile so that you can connect with them even further beyond our interaction today. So, if you would like to connect with Susan, feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn. Susan, great to have you here today.
Hey, hi, Mucha, and hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. Always really, really enjoyed these conversations, and I'm certain today's will be no different.
Fantastic. We also have with us Mo. Mo is a new member of the wider PTS family. Susan and I connected with him recently, and we're excited to have him on board. Mohammed El Shafi is a business transformational coach, leadership mentor, and life coach dedicated to helping leaders and entrepreneurs align professional success with personal purpose. With over 40 years in tech, including 27 at Oracle, he combines sales strategy, leadership development, and customer transformation to guide executives and teams towards clarity, alignment, and results. Today, as an ICF accredited coach and founder of his own practice, Mohammed supports clients through career transitions, life pivots, and personal growth, helping them to connect with their authentic selves and lead with confidence and purpose. Mo, we are so delighted to have you here. It's I'm really looking forward to the insights that you will share. So welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Musha, to invite me to this event. I'm so excited to be part of this panel and looking forward to talk with everyone. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mo. If you want to connect with Mo, and I know you will find him on LinkedIn, we've shared the link to his LinkedIn profile. Last but not least, we have with us Joseph Otima. And let me tell you a little bit about Joseph as well. Joseph is a multidisciplinary leader with a background in electrical engineering and solar installation, known for his strategic thinking and problem solving approach. He has served as an administrator at Vision Stars Training Institute and currently as administrative pastor at Integrity Church. He's also pursuing a degree in transformational church leadership at Pac University. He's really passionate about leadership rooted in self respect, integrity, and the alignment between values and action. Joseph, it is so good to have you here. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mucha, and everyone. Good to see you. Greetings to you all. Glad to be joining this session today and looking forward for a great session together.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Joseph. If you want to connect with Joseph, you can also find him on LinkedIn. We've shared the link to his LinkedIn profile in the comments, so do connect with him. So, welcome to my panel. It is great to have you here. I always tell those who are with us that if they provide their lunch, we will provide the learning. And I know that today will be no different. I'm looking forward to the insights you will share. To those of you who are joining us live this morning for me, possibly afternoon for you, make sure that you say hi. Go to the comments and say hi to us so that we can say hi right back and give you a shout out. And later in the program, we'll open up for our Q&A, but feel free to start posting your questions now if you wish so that we can come to them then. So, Joseph, I want to start with you. I brought you on last, so let me start with you as you kick us off in this conversation. And I'm going to ask the question to all of you, but I'll start with you, Joseph. So, leading with self respect, what does that mean, right? Not just as a concept, but in how you show up on a day to day basis.
Once again, thank you. I think that's a good time to start leading with self-respect. One of the questions I ask myself, am I a leader? And if yes, now do I respect myself? As you had stated earlier, it's the month of love. And one of the things you can love yourself as a leader is to respect yourself. Now, for me, leading with self-respect, it means showing up whole, not performing a version of myself just to fit in. Currently, people or some of the people, they want to fit in the society. And yet now that has those self-respect because you're working to please people. Now, practically, it looks like being honest about my capacity. Am I managing my energy? Speaking with clarity, instead of speaking with fear, and not abandoning my values for acceptance. And as you've mentioned, I'm passionate about leading with integrity. And so it is more of choosing integrity over image and sustainability over approval. And so in my day-to-day life, it is those small how do I respond to pressure? How do I treat my time? And how do I allow myself to be treated at work? To me, that's leading with self-respect.
Wow, thank you very much for that, Joseph. I think that you've opened up the conversation really well. Mo, can I invite you to share your reflections on the same question, this idea of with self-respect? What does that mean for you as a coach?
Thank you so much. And I'm always following this wise man Confucius saying, respect yourself so others will respect you. And it's only like when I work with for myself and my clients, it's all about knowing your self values.
Mm,
You know your values, you respect yourself, others will respect you.
yeah.
And that creates kind of confidence and self confidence. So when you speak with confidence. And we all see these actors in movies or singers or anything like this. When they speak from authority, you believe them.
Mm.
This also helped me to put boundaries in everything, in work, in life. I know when can I say yes, when I say no, and also because I do all of this for myself first,
Mm.
I carry the accountabilities of my actions. So I take these kind of accountabilities. The other short story I think most of us heard about it, about the gentleman who gave his son an old watch and sent him three like different places asking for the price of the watch. So some place said it's an old watch, it worth nothing. Another one said it's an old watch, I may can fix it. And an antique shop said like this is very rare one, it worth a lot. So self-respect is about knowing yourself. Thank you.
Wow. Oh, I love that. Self-respect is about knowing yourself. And what it sounds to me from both you, Joseph, and you, Mo, and I'm sure Susan, you will reflect on the same, is this ability to respect self ultimately has an impact on how we show up and how others treat us. Susan, your reflections on this same question.
Yo, Joseph and Mo's reflections have me thinking. I'm like, yes,
I
this is,
know, right? We've
yeah,
started deep. We've
we've
started
started
deep. Huh?
real deep. Yeah, and I'm like, wow.
Yes.
Um, I really echo what they've shared, that self-respect is not only it's holding upholding your values, right? And
Mm,
what each of them have kind of touched on, and I would like to highlight, is that for to be able to stand up for your values, you really need to know your values. And I find when a lot of times we are unclear, we kind of know, but we don't actually take time to say, let me sit down and write down what my values are. Because that's where your self-respect starts, when you actually know what your values are. Then you're in a position to know what is a go for you and what is a no. And then self respect comes up in your behavior when you actually do say no. When you actually say, wait, let's talk about that. I think this is something we need to explore further, rather than letting it pass. It's about knowing what you believe in, and running that through all your decisions and all your movements, and holding yourself accountable to those values and those standards that you have set for yourself through a deeper understanding of yourself, and
mm,
staying aligned to that consistently. And I think in a lot of corporate setups, or even just life, there's a lot of pressure. You want to be accepted, you want to you want to progress in certain way. And self-respect is saying no, despite how this ecosystem is set up. I'm going to stand up for
mm,
me and what I think
mm,
is right. And it shows up in so many different ways. I mean, we think of corruption, and I'm not talking about corruption where somebody's asking for a kickback, but
mm,
in like a HR setup where we're having performance reviews and a particular manager is not applying fair practice across board. I self-respect means, because I believe in fairness, I'm going to speak up in that situation and say, no,
mm,
let's take a step back and talk about it. It shows up
mm,
when you're navigating interesting or leadership directives that don't really align with what your values are. When you have maybe a request, everybody's going to stay until 2 a.m. today, suddenly,
mm,
what do you do with that? You say, okay, I am a team player, I'm a corporate girl, so I'm going to make sure everybody aligns to that, and I'm going to go and bark at my team and make sure they show up that way. It's self-respect is having enough respect for yourself to show up for yourself by demonstrating
mm.
really who you really are and how
Yeah.
what your values are. Breaking that
Mm.
silence, even when it's uncomfortable, and pushing back, even when the risks are high. So for me,
Yeah,
that's
thank
that.
you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Susan. I think that, it's clear from what my panelists have shared that self-respect really begins with self-awareness, right? It's understanding yourself, understanding your values, knowing what your boundaries are so that you can enforce them. And if you've interacted with me in person on social media, you will know that I really believe in the power of self-awareness. I always say that you can only really go as far forward in life towards your dreams as you are willing to go inward. The deeper you dive inward, the more effective you show up as an individual. So thank you very much for sharing those insights. Before we go to our next question, let's just say a few hellos. We have a number of people here who are here with us and have said hi. Florence Wanaina from Kenya, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to have you here. Thank you for joining us, Barnabas Achoki, also joining from Kenya. Movin Nyasi, thank you for joining us also from Kenya. Rhoda Mwelu from Kenya too. Evans Owino, great to have you here. Thank you for joining us from Nairobi. And we have Mohammed Rayad. Thank you very much for joining us here too. It is fabulous to have you here. Thank you for saying hi. If you are online and you've not said hi, say hello so we can give you a shout back. And like I said, a little later, we'll be inviting you to share your questions. But even as we go, please share your comments, share your responses to what my panel are saying so that we can have an engaging conversation. Susan, let me stay with you as we continue. From an organizational point of view, where do you often see professionals compromising self-respect at work, even when they're viewed as high performers? So you have a background in human resources, and you've already spoken to this fact that self-respect is about being able to speak out when things are not in alignment with your values. But where do you see professionals compromising this self-respect at work, even those who are supposedly high performers?
Yeah, thanks, Mucha. And as you mentioned, I touched a little bit on it. I see this showing up when you hear people saying things like, that's just how we do things around here, right? When people just go with the flow without checking against how does this align with my own personal values, with my purpose, or with me as an individual. And for example, like I said, it's things like accepting unrealistic expectations, right? And it's not just for yourself. It's not just my boss has given me a target, but my boss has given me a target that's going to make me give my team unreasonable targets. So, working excessive hours. Mo mentioned tolerating poor behavior and poor treatment, accepting that, oh, I work for this kind of organization or our organization happens to be from this nation and their culture allows them to use profanity. No, no. It shows up in things like sacrificing your own personal well-being for performance metrics. And the irony, as you said, is that these are the people who tend to be labeled top performers. They're the people who will literally go backwards and die for the cause of the organization at the expense of themselves. And these top performers, what we don't see is that beneath the surface, there's burnout, there's disengagement, there's resentment, there's internal misalignment. The stress is eroding at clarity on where am I going? Yeah, I'm just running this race and I no longer know where I'm going and who I am. And over time, you lose the zeal, you lose the interest, and you lose yourself in the process. And what is worth losing yourself over? So this is how self-respect shows up in the corporate spaces when you are compromising so much at the expense of things that don't align with what it is that you want to achieve in life.
Yeah, thank you very much, Susan. I know that I have, two others, but I want to just stay a little bit with you because there's someone who's listening to you, Susan, saying, yes, but I want my job. I want to keep my job, right? So how do I balance between this idea of self-respect where I am clear about my boundaries, I speak up if I feel the expectations are beyond what is reasonable, but I want to keep my job, right? The current environment is such that it's hard to find great jobs. How do I find that balance? Susan, I'd really love to hear your thoughts on that.
It starts with knowing your value, honestly. If you know what you're bringing to the table is valuable to the conversation, to the goals of the organization, then that gives you the room to start setting up boundaries, right? So the first step is understand what is it that is the reasonable ask. Where is this organization going and what is my part in this? And being ahead of that rather than waiting where you're doing a kind of catch up on a constant. So once you understand what is it that will be of value to this organization, then you slowly start to create the room to build your boundaries. When your value is recognized, then it becomes an easy conversation to say, I'm stepping out
Yeah,
this afternoon because I know I've already delivered the value that you need from me. So when I say I'm stepping out this afternoon and my boss is like, but is this done? Is this done? You're like, yes, 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 yes. And you create that space to start building those boundaries. And building those boundaries happens over time. I've seen in a very, very high pressure environment, this employee who just had carved out their own little, I could say, mini culture. He had carved out space in his calendar where it was very clear to even the CEO and all the highest offices that so and so it's important for him to go and pick up his daughter at school. So between 12:30 and 2 o'clock, he's not available. And so
mm,
at this time, that time. And that was because he was already delivering on the value that was needed from him. And this was a crazy environment where this was, those environments that are really
mm,
high pressure and long hours are celebrated. But when you
yeah,
deliver the value, you have that power and authority to set up the boundaries that you need that then let you
yeah.
to,
Mm.
practice your self-respect.
I like that. So when you deliver value, then those working with you recognize your value and they are willing to, allow for make those accommodations that you may need that are in line with your boundaries. Thank you very much for that. Joseph, let me come to you next, and then I'll come to you more because I'm interested in just hearing um, as a follow-up on this question to Susan, as a young professional, what pressures make it hard to prioritize that self-respect whilst you're still trying to prove yourself and grow? Because Susan talked about this idea that you need to showcase your value, and as you showcase your value, it gives you the room to be able to ask for what you need. So how do we prioritize that self-respect when you're still trying to prove yourself and to grow? What makes it hard? What pressures exist that make it hard for young professionals?
Yes, and thank you again. One of the biggest pressure to prove value quickly, and Susan has mentioned something to do with value. And so we find ourselves in a space whereby you need to prove your value very quickly. Like I had also mentioned earlier, it's where now most people fail because they want to fit in the society. And this is especially when you are building your credibility in leadership. You want to grow as a leader. You are a young person. You have this professional that you are venturing yourself in, and then you find that the people who are there with you, the pressure is too high, and so you need to prove yourself to fit with them. And there's fear of being seen and grateful. Are you grateful to what you're bringing in? Sometimes also there is this fear of being difficult. They'll say you're a difficult man, difficult leader, or even some will say you're not committed and not even enough for what is ahead of you. And so this makes people to say yes to everything. And this allows now what we call we carry more than what we should. Now, let me give an example. In both, I've worked in administration at a college level, and now I'm in the ministry space. Now, overfunctioning is often rewarded as is often rewarded, and so by extension feels like loyalty. So you as a leader, the pressure comes: should I show my value? This is what I'm capable of, or Should I be loyal to maybe bending to what is being ahead of you? And this makes you that over time, you realize that constantly you are shrinking yourself, and this doesn't build your confidence. What it does, it actually erodes it. So the need to prove value quickly, that is to me the biggest pressure. We want to prove ourselves instead of being whole and being yourself and respecting yourself, setting your boundaries and saying, this is what I'm capable of, this is what I can do. And that makes people to see how they treat you. That is my take on that, basing on the value that you bring in.
I love that. And I think you raise a really important point, Joseph, this idea of wanting things quickly. And I think that we can make it clear that when we talk about showcasing your value, it doesn't have to be something that takes years to do. I think that you can showcase your value very quickly. We have a new member of our team who joined the team, the most recent member of our team, and I think she's already showcased her value. She's already positioned herself in such a way that, when she does set those boundaries, and she does, she reminds Susan and I that we must take breaks, for example, and we listen, right? And we give her that space. She set very clear boundaries around what's acceptable, for example, in terms of interaction over a weekend, and we give that space. So I think it's important to understand that when we talk about showcasing your value, that's something you do from day one. It's not something that necessarily has to take years and years to do. And I really agree and resonate with what you're saying, Joseph, this idea that we need to stop trying to fit in, right? We need to be brave enough and bold enough from very early on to be able to set our own boundaries. A funny, hopefully, side note, when you're getting married, there are all these marriage seminar parties, these what you call them, bridal parties that you go to. And since I've been married for a number of years, I've now attended many. And one of the things that we are told as women is don't start something that you cannot sustain when you get married. Do not begin if you know you will not be able to do something for the life of your marriage. Don't start it, right? And I was just reflecting on that idea as I was thinking of how we go into the workplace. That go in and just be very clear about the value you are bringing and make it something that in a way is sustainable, something that you're going to be able to do continuously. Mo, I want to bring you into this conversation and then I'll go to our comments because we have lots of comments through people who keep saying hi. In your work with professionals as a coach, what patterns do you notice when people struggle to lead with self-respect, especially those in high pressure roles?
Yeah, actually, I see this a lot again when it comes to pressure. And keep in mind, with my background in business,
Tech,
I see
yeah.
this especially around
Mm,
sales, targeting the numbers, end of the quarters,
mm,
and so on. And I see a lot of people struggling by either overworking, and I think Susan brought in the well-being and setting the boundaries, back to the boundaries between, like the example of the gentleman dedicating time for his daughter. People, they forget,
mm,
okay? And that because their self-respect is at a certain level, and they try to get it, or they don't see themselves valuable to the organization,
mm,
so they
mm,
overwork. They compromise their family and personal life. They over explain, even like, oh, I'm doing this,
mm,
and they seek approval. Do you agree with me? Do you agree with me? Do you like this idea? Okay. And the other one is like, I'm doing this because of that. I'm doing this because of that. So, and in many culture, because I think Susan and Joseph brought the culture issue. In many culture, there is confusion between self-respect and being humble or selfish. But when people struggle with their own self-respect, they struggle and they overdo everything.
mm,
Example from my personal experience, when I was working in the corporate life, I was in front of customer doing presentation, and the entire sales team went in with a note that the CFO who is very busy lady. She will join the meeting for 15 minutes, and we have to be sharp, deliver the message. She showed up on time, and in like after 2 minutes, she started looking in her phone and her email. I was the one presenting, and I stopped presenting. I totally stopped everything. And one after another, they start raising their head like, what's going on? And I said, I'm really sorry. Seems that you're busy, and I appreciate you are here. However, we will be able to reschedule the meeting whenever your time is allowed. Immediately, the CFO put down her phone and she said, like, I'm always you. Within 10 minutes, we were shaking hands, we were closing deals. So this is coming from knowing yourself, value and respect yourself. And I use this story always with my clients. And again, Joseph, I have so many uh, young professional people coming saying, I'm like competing with this person who's been there for 10, 15 minutes. I said, no, be aware of yourself.
Mm, mm. I love it. Oh my goodness. As always, I'm just amazed at the amount of insights that just come flying. I see you, Susan. I see you. Susan wants to add to that.
A
What an
quick,
amazing conversation we're having. Yes, Susan, go ahead.
I keep forgetting I'm on the panel because I'm just like, I'm really absorbing everything. It's fun. It's a fantastic conversation. And I just wanted to, just a quick phrase as I was listening to Mo, I was like, yeah, self-respect is not a disservice to yourself. And this shrinking that we do so that we're accepted or that we
Mm,
are liked. Actually, when you step up for yourself, like in that scenario, you demonstrate to someone, I actually know my value. And if you would be so fortunate
mm,
as to access that value, take a few minutes and it will be worth your time. So that self-respect demands, it kind of commands, not demands, it commands respect from others. And that takes us back to Mo's quote from Confucius. I love it. You respect yourself and others will respect you, but you have to demonstrate that you respect
mm.
yourself.
Yeah. And I think, to Joseph's earlier point, the challenge is many of us are still seeking approval, right?
Mhm.
We want to be approved.
Yeah.
We want people to approve of us. We want people to like us. I always tell people when we facilitate the sessions we facilitate that it's not the goal for leaders is not to be liked, it's to be respected. People need to be able to respect you, not to like you, because when you're seeking likes and approvals, you are not going to stand up for yourself, right? Because you're going to be trying to do what pleases others. And that is a really challenging way to lead. It's a really challenging way to lead. Oh my, we have so much
Actually,
coming through
Musha,
online. Yes, Mo,
sorry
go
to
ahead. Yes,
interrupt,
yes, Mo. Please go
but
ahead.
also about knowing your value. And I always like to tell stories.
Hmm.
And one of the, I think we all saw this video on social media in the last couple of years about the musician guy who was playing music in one of the metro or subway stations, and people they were throwing like coins in his case and not even stopping. And it turned out later he's the same guy, very well known performance. People they paid thousand and thousand of dollars to attend his performance. Again,
Mm.
knowing your value will come with your self-respect. Thank you.
I love it. I love it. Thank you very much. We have a few more people who are saying hi. Jane Nduta Kimani, great to have you here. We have someone logged in as Untold Stories of Grace who says, what a great topic and a great panel. Jane saying it's a great and timely forum. Nancy Wambui from Eldoret is here with us. Great to have you. We have Eve, who is also with us. She says it's a great wake up call, a much needed topic. Um, She's saying, Susan, it's amazing to see you thrive and excel in what you do best. You are such an encouragement to us young professionals. I continue to cherish the lessons you taught me. So, Susan, this is someone who knows you and is happy to be here with us. We have someone here who says that self-respect at work is work-life balance, overcoming the fear and speaking up. And Mohammed has a question here that is very much aligned with the conversation we're having. So as much as I said we're having questions later, I think it's a good one to bring in. Mo, you talked about the impact of culture. And I think one of the things you said, which was so key, one of those great aha moments, was this idea that we often confuse self-respect, with humility. Like, I'm being humble, which is why I am yielding to this particular request. And yet those are not the same thing. So there's a question here. Does cultural impact reflect the influence of leadership value across teams and corporate staff? Does cultural impact reflect
Yes.
the influence of leadership value across teams and corporate staff? This is from Mohammed. I'd love to have you share your thoughts. Go ahead,
Sure. Yes.
Mo.
Actually, the short answer is yes, it does.
Yes.
And for me, as someone who worked across continents, across different cultures, between Eastern and Western um, cultures, I would say yes. And the key here is try to understand your work environment. And actually, Mucha, that's what we do with the Sixth Sense uh, EQ when we
Mm,
talk about know yourself, choose yourself,
mm,
give yourself. Because when we talk about this, we need to talk with people around us in their language. I cannot go to the England and I speak to them in Arabic, for example. I need to speak English, and that goes to the culture. I need to understand what is the culture boundaries. I'm not saying compromise your
mm,
boundaries.
mm.
We need to be clear. This is
Yes.
culture, but this is also what we bring to the table.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes,
Thank
the
you.
answer is yes, but also
Mm.
we need to work with this. I hope this answers the question.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Susan, you look like you wanted. Oh yes, please go ahead. Go ahead. And answer. And then Susan, if you want to add as well, we'll come to you. Go ahead.
When you mentioned culture, I've just remembered, culture comes with the vision. Um, for instance, your workspace, you need to understand what is the vision of this organization, this company. Now, how do I bring in my vision as a leader to fit in the vision of the company without losing yourself as a person?
Mm,
So
mm,
culture on my side, it's impactful, but you need to be very careful to know that how do I bend in to support the vision while also building myself, because you hear many most people will have worked in one space. For example, I have worked in a college setup, then changed to now ministry level, and so
mm.
this should not I should not be changing every time. I should remain to be who I am,
Yeah.
respected, but still supporting the vision of where I am currently. So you need to understand
Mm,
the culture of that place. If it's a company, how does it fit in the culture of maybe the city and now the country at large? And how should
mm.
I join in my culture so that we can work well and at the end, I should not lose myself. Just an example as I finish up there. I work in a church setup. And so there's a story of told of one of my colleagues. The first time he came in church in grass, and so he asked, I need to see the pastor of this church. So he asked that man. That man told him, I'm the pastor. Say, no, I need the pastor. He was just not dressed in a suit, just mowing grass. So he was told, please go at the reception. You'll be guided. So he went at the reception, and later he was told, wait here, he will come, only to find out that the one who was mowing grass was the pastor. Now you see that the culture of our church talks about servanthood, leading as an example. It's like a pastor within people or a leader within people. Now, I think it was Susan who touched about, or someone touched about humility. Humility is not just now, no one will lose your respect because you are more in class, but they will see you as in this culture. Me as a person, I'm allowed to lead as an example. I don't just have to be bossy and ask around, do this, but I can show them this is how it is done. So that's how you join in your vision to the vision of the place and be able not to lose yourself. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. Thank you very much. I think that this is a really great conversation we're having. Again, a follow-up question, purely because we're talking about this, we may as well address it. Thank you very much, Mohammed, for your question. There's another question here that now speaks to how you maintain this self-respect in a toxic culture dominated by fear. So we've talked interchangeably about culture when we talk about different countries, right, and their cultures. But we've also talked about culture within organizations. You brought the example of the pastor who is showcasing what servant leadership looks like by being the one mowing the grass. How do you maintain self-respect in a culture that is converse, a toxic culture that is dominated by fear? I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one. Susan? Yes, Susan, I see you've unmuted in readiness. Please go ahead.
No, just reflecting on the last two questions. I mean, this question and the one that was there before, and I think culture is important. You can't ignore culture because culture is the context, right? And it's not just the culture, the context of where you are now. Also, the culture that you have come from influences how you're showing up as well. So it's important to take that time to recognize what are those influences and understand how that's showing up in the values that you've developed for yourself. Now, once you do that and you want to understand the external context, now you're in a culture, whether be it an organization or you're in a different country and you need to understand the culture, it's really important because then you understand the landscape that you're playing with, and how then your values are relevant or how you can demonstrate them in, and to borrow from Mo's words, in the language that will be understood. Yeah. So without that understanding of what you're playing with and what your environment looks like, that situational awareness, then it is very hard for you to show up and communicate what your boundaries are, what is important to you. So you can't ignore it. Now, in this situation where you're already in a role and you come to recognize that the culture is toxic and is dominated by fear, it's difficult, but again, the consistency in understanding what your values are and then having the confidence which you have built because you know of the value that you're bringing to the table, you slowly start to edge. People will start to respect that when I come at Susan with this kind of language, she will stop me and say, no, let's have this conversation like two adults. Or when I come at Susan with an 11 p.m. request, she will say, I hear you. I understand the importance of this. I will get to it first thing in the morning. When you come at me with pushing for a kind of reaction, because that's what this toxic culture promotes, you're coming to shake me up. I am able to step up and say softly, but very clearly, this cannot work. Or sometimes when you're in the situation, it's very difficult to speak up because the fear has already taken over. But when you overcome the situation, taking a moment to step in when temperatures are cool, because what happens with a toxic culture is that everyone is going through it. Even that boss who's being toxic, he's getting pressure from somewhere as well. So when things have cooled down, when your boss is cool and you're cool, let's go back and have a conversation like, okay, I really understood this was a priority and I'm glad that we got through it. But I want to highlight that this kind of environment or this kind of communication or this kind of deadline setting at the last minute is not productive for either of us. But you really need to understand that self-respect is speaking up for yourself to preserve your wellness, to preserve your stamina, and even to preserve our relationship. Because as the longer you keep it going, the longer you're going to have to endure it. And it's only humanly possible to endure it for a very short time.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I see that we have a few more people who said hi. I want to come to them. There's a couple more questions, but I want us to move to something else and then we'll come back to some of the questions that are in the chat. So I think Sophia Ndiga, I'm not sure if I'd said hi to you. I know I said hi to Rhoda. and to Movin. Comments are coming through, and we have a number of mic drop moments that are happening in the chat. Movin says self-respect starts with living within yourself, silencing external noise that gives stage for societal performance. Being you, even in the face of normalcy. Thank you very much for that. I think that's a really important point. Rhoda says self respect is about speaking up when something does not align with your values. Not easy, though, for most people due to the toxic work cultures that we find ourselves in. It is such a shame that many of us find ourselves working in environments that are really not conducive. And I want to pivot to that a little and ask you all, many workplaces subtly reward overextension and self-sacrifice. So yes, we talk about the idea that I must set boundaries, but when I look up, I notice that the people who are getting promoted, the people who are getting the accolades, are those who seem to overextend themselves and self-sacrifice. How can I determine for myself, regardless of the environment and the culture of my organization, the difference between what is healthy commitment, so what is giving 100%, and behavior that is actually eroding self-respect? So how do I tell? Where do I draw the line in knowing that, you know what? Yes, this is the ask, but this is where the line is for me. Susan, I'll stay with you and start with you this time around. How do I tell the difference between healthy commitment and behavior that's going to erode my self-respect?
Thanks, Mucha. And guys, if we're really to be honest, everything about you will tell you. Your body shouts. Your friends, your family will call it out. They say, nowadays, whenever you talk about work, or nowadays we never see you because you're either in work or you're recovering, right? My doctor calls it hapakule, which means here and there. So it's when you go in and you have a pain here, you have a pain here, and there's symptoms with no diagnosis, and it's your body telling you we are not surviving. Things are thick. We're not at peace, and there's internal turmoil, and it starts to show up that way. When you have that moment of quiet, you really do know that this cannot be the way life is meant to be, right? And I guess the gauge is that healthy commitment should energize you. Healthy commitment makes you feel like you're part of something and you're working towards a purpose and you're using your skills. You're energized about it. You wake up like, yeah, I have this. It's not that, yeah, I have a dream job every day. No. But you wake up and there's this project that we're working on and you're excited about it. Yeah. On the other hand, erosion of self-respect because of overextending yourself starts to feel like resentment. You don't feel like you want to talk to these people. You don't feel like you want to show up. You don't understand where you're going. You don't understand what's acceptable, what's not. Your boundaries are very, and there's confusion. You feel it. If you're very honest with yourself, you feel it in your body, in your mind, in your heart. You can tell I'm giving more than I really should be giving, right? And I think a simple test that we can do for a self-check is just ask yourself, is my level of commitment affecting or costing me my wellness? Is it costing me clarity? Is it costing my dignity? Is it costing me things that are important to me? That could be family, could be community. If your answer to is this costing me this, is this level of costing me these things, it's no longer healthy.
Wow, thank you very much for that, Susan. I really like the way throughout this conversation is underlaid this idea that we must have greater self-awareness, because I can never identify these things if I'm not tuning in, if I'm not spending that time connecting with myself. I will be forever going to the doctor complaining of an ache here, there, and everywhere that has no real physiological reason, but what pressures and stresses I am under. And so I think what you're highlighting here is this idea of being aware, of connecting with ourselves. Mo, let me come to you, and then Joseph, I'm going to come to you on the same question, because I think this is really important. How do I know the difference? How do I find that balance? How do I make sure that I'm giving 100%, but I'm not then crossing over into behaviors that are going to erode my self-respect? Mo, over to you, and then we'll conclude that with you, Joseph.
All right. Thank you so much, Mucha. And I'm gonna give the short answer as usual. You know me. Short answer and long answer. The
And the
short
story.
answer is think about it like running for a marathon versus running from fear.
Mm,
I want to take a moment and again think about it. Running for a marathon to achieve something, to achieve a goal, you will be tired, exhausted, but you will do it because you want to do it.
mm,
Versus running from something I fear. I don't want to run from fear, but I have to run to survive. I will be exhausted, unsatisfied, unhappy.
mm,
Okay, so that what gives me the how to know if it's a healthy commitment or not healthy commitment.
mm,
Okay, that's very important. And that comes with the emotion also, because it's all
mm,
about how this can uh, work for my self emotions. Am I satisfied with this? What else? And sometimes even yes, we have to run from fear, but for how long? That takes me back to the first thing when we start talking about boundaries. And I think like you talked about this, and like if our Susan, sorry, talked about this, if we are under pressure to achieve a certain goal for organization, yes, I will run with you to a certain limit, but when things settle down, let's talk.
yes.
So
Yeah.
it's all about self-awareness, self-boundaries, and this is how I know if it's healthy or not healthy. Thank you.
I really like the point you've just made there, and I want to be sure I've understood it the way that you shared it, because what I'm hearing you say is that there will be times when maybe things are a little bit busier at work, where your boss expects a little bit more from you, and that's okay, but it cannot be something that is all the time. So we may find, and I think if you use the analogy of a marathon, there may be moments in the marathon where I'm running a little bit faster, right? Because that's what's required in that moment, but I'm not going to be able to sustain that pace the whole marathon. And so what's important is making sure that you are mindful of where in the journey you are. Is this something that is a one-off, or has this become the culture? This become the expectation that I'm required to stay these long hours or pull these all-nighters consistently? Yeah, thank you very much for that. That's a really important point that you raised there. I told you guys that this is going to be a great conversation. Joseph, I want to come to you on the same one, because you also bring a different lens, a different perspective, especially as an earlier career professional. What are your thoughts about maintaining this balance and making sure that we are giving 100%? Because we talked earlier about how we must showcase our value, but that we're not now going over and aboard.
Um, for us to talk about the difference, we cannot miss choice and impact. Now, let me start from this angle. Healthy commitment is sustainable. Self-sacrifice that erodes self-respect, which is not actually that way. Now, let's talk about choice. One of the difference we need to look at is versus compulsion. We are talking about health commitment. It comes from one purpose, the clarity. Are you clear? The alignment. All these should be aligned with your values. While erosion, on the other hand, it's talked about fear before. The pressure, we talked about guilt, because when you are under pressure, now that brings fear, and so you need to prove. Now let's talk a little bit about impact. When you are committing yourself in a healthy way, it is strengthens you over time. But unhealthy sacrifice, as a leader, your energy as a leader, and even your mental, in both ministry and administrative leadership, where I am right now,
Mm,
I've learned that serving voice, your boundaries, your rest, and even your values, it's no longer
mm,
commitment right now, an erosion.
yeah.
And
Mm,
just to finish up, if your contribution requires something, man, that's not leadership. That is just your body. It is what I call slow burnout. So we
wow.
cannot. We need to talk about and your impact as a leader for us to be commitment.
I
That's
love
my
it.
take on that.
I love it. Self-abandonment. If what you're doing requires self-abandonment, that is not the direction you want to go, right? That is not healthy commitment. You guys are sharing such amazing gems. I know that our audience are truly enjoying themselves. I'm seeing lots of insights coming through. There is a comment here around the fact that, in many organizations, there doesn't seem to be the option to say no, right? The culture is such that you must say yes regardless of what you're being asked. Some cultures expect 100% compliance, but what I'm hearing you say is that we can begin to create microcultures within the culture where we do different, right? And we speak up for ourselves and we stand up for ourselves, recognizing that more than this 100% commitment is not sustainable, right? It's not sustainable. And so we need to learn the language of saying a soft no, standing up for ourselves so that we can maintain our sanity. So thank you very much for this. For these comments. A comment here from Eve. I believe the most important and valuable trait you need to maintain within yourself is setting boundaries and being principled. It's sad that some organizations that have toxic cultures do give great exposure to growth in one's profession. And so people stay there because they feel like it's going to grow them. The question you have to ask yourself is at what cost, right? At what cost? I do believe that, if you feel that, for example, you need to stay in a place because you see what it's going to give you in the long run, perhaps that then becomes a strategy that's a short-term strategy, but it's not a long-term strategy because in the end, it has an impact. Susan talked about how your body tells the story. Your body tells the story. Your body tells the story of what you've put it through. Um, so, self respect asks us, what is the cost of the silence to your soul? We have to find a way to be both employable and authentic. We do. Let's continue with our conversation.
Actually,
Yes,
Mucha,
yes,
sorry
Mo. Please,
to
please go
interrupt.
ahead. Yes,
According to the comments I'm seeing, I think we lost Joseph. I don't know what happened.
yes, yes. Hopefully, he'll join us back again.
But I just want to highlight something here.
Yes.
When we talk about self-respect, and especially when talk about self-respect in toxic organization cultures, okay,
Mm,
I just want to highlight self-respect. It's not only about the person self-respect. As a leader, it's about your team self-respect.
mm,
You create this boundaries not only about yourself but around your team, because guess what, if you have self-respect to yourself in front of your team will respect you as well. Your
mm.
management, even if they resist, they will respect you. So I just want to highlight this
Yeah,
self-respect
yeah.
is not a
Mm,
personal,
mm.
it's like work ethics.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. And I think if I can add to your thought, Mo, what you do as a leader who demonstrates self respect is you give permission to your team to respect themselves as well. So you
Yes.
model the behavior that is most appropriate. And the truth of the matter is, if we're looking at this from a numbers perspective, we know because of the work we do that environments where people can thrive, because there is that psychological safety to do so and to set those boundaries, are environments where people do good work. So
Yes.
it's not just something that's nice to have. It's not just a nice thing. It makes business sense. If you are a leader who is here listening, it makes business sense for
Mm,
you to model this self-respect,
Yeah.
for you to extend this to your team, for you to protect your team and provide this kind of combined or communal self-respect
Yes.
upwards, setting boundaries for your team upwards. It actually makes business sense. And so what it means as a leader is you begin showcasing the value of your team. Remember earlier we are talking about value. And so when you go into meetings with those who lead you, you are able to advocate for your team. And because you've showcased the value of your team, you're getting a yes that others may not get. And so this is not something that's just a nice. And I think this is the thing we highlight every single time when we talk about emotional intelligence. It's not a nice to have, it makes business sense. It's something
mm.
that actually drives bottom line results. And so it's really critical. I want to share some more questions. Susan, I want to come to you. And as I come to you, I want to also share a question to our audience. A quick question. We want to know how much you're enjoying this conversation, and we'd like you to answer this question. I'm going to share it. We're going to share it in the comments. And it's a question around how or whether you would recommend this webinar to a colleague or friend. So how likely are you to recommend this webinar to a colleague or a friend? Just go to the comments and type on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being you will immediately recommend it, and 1 being, neither, you're not particularly motivated. So just go to the comments and just type 1 to 5. Obviously, we're hoping for lots of 5s, but please do share in the comments and let us know whether or not you would recommend. So how likely you are to recommend this webinar to a colleague or friend on a scale of 1 to 5. All right, so please do that for us. We'd love to hear from you. Just type the number. Like I said, 5 is the one where you would recommend, and 1 is the one where you wouldn't. Susan, what is one workplace norm? We're talking about toxic workplaces. We're talking about environments that can actually make it really hard for you to, maintain self-respect. They make it hard for you to set boundaries. So maybe let's think about a leader who's here, who's listening, who is thinking about what they can do, right? So what is one workplace norm or expectation that organizations could rethink to better support self-respect without lowering performance standards? Woo, my tongue is tripping over itself. Let me say that again. What is one workplace norm or expectation that organizations could rethink to better support self-respect without lowering performance standards?
Okay. I'm feeling a little conflicted here because one is one, and this is an area I really like talking about. Shaping organizations and cultures that can really help organizations to thrive through its people. But I'll try. I'll narrow it down. I won't give you one. I'll give you more than one.
That's okay. Feel free to give me a few, more than just one.
So the first one is rethinking how we manage or rate performance. So we started with that. I think one of the first comments I made was about excessive hours, and the reason I mentioned it is because it has become kind of like a measure of dedication. So shifting as an organization from equating excessive or long hours with dedication, and shifting towards measuring impact and outcomes rather than watching the clock. First of all, watching the clock is a lot of administrative work. So relieve yourself of that problem and start to focus on what is having very clear goals and deliverables and how that person is performing against them. Don't worry about what time they're doing it. And as we get into very diverse organizations where people are working across the globe, or we have our staff complement is across generations, trying to micromanage what time they get the work done is a disservice to yourself as an organization.
Mm.
So focus on what is the output, what is the contribution, and make sure that that gives people the room to uphold their self-respect while still delivering on excellence. Why? Because this sends the message that your value is in your contribution. And we trust you as a professional to manage yourself and deliver on it,
Mm.
as opposed to come in at this time to this time. Because, I've been in places where people will come in. They'll come in at 7:30 and they'll be on reading the newspaper, drinking tea, catching up at the water point, and the work starts at 10. Whereas this person, given flexible spaces, they would have been more productive over a shorter period and work gets done. So free yourself of that administrative task of watching the clock and dictating, and be very clear with what is it that we want from you, and manage that productivity.
Mm.
The other one is, Mucha, you kind of touched on it a bit, is promoting a culture that supports wellness, a culture where people can feel comfortable enough to speak up or speak out. And one of the key ways of making this possible is by you demonstrating that, you speaking up, you speaking out. That gives people that room to also do the same. And then one of the things that happens in corporate a lot is that you apply for leave, which is earned leave. From your contract, you have 25 days. But every time you put in a leave application, it's like you have to justify it. Remove that. Why do you want people to have to justify a benefit that they've earned, right? So remove that from the equation. And I think one of the challenges that organizations have is that we have specialists. Only Susan can work on the review. And that's where we're doing a disservice, because if Susan is not there, then this report cannot go out. So put in place, develop capacity building practices, have people work in teams, shadowing each other, so that if Susan is not there, Mucha can do it. Mucha is not there, Susan can do it. That way, when I do need to take a day off, it's not a crisis. It's not that the client won't get what they need, right?
Mm.
And then finally, in a very ideal human capital management world, and this will speak a little bit to those who are asking, what do I do? I'm already in this toxic culture. There needs honesty about values and ways of working needs to be an honest conversation right from the beginning. So when you're bringing on board talent or recruiting talent, organizations should not only be very clear about what their culture is up front, but how they go about delivering, and interrogate candidates on what are your values, what is it that you're looking for, so that you're looking at ensuring alignment. I tell people that every time you go for an interview, don't forget you're also interviewing the employer. Understand, who is this that I'm trying to get on board with? Yeah, don't go there just to impress and saying all the things you think they want to say. Go in there and understand, do I really want to be a part of this? Does this really align with me, right? And and with this at its core, that is in itself self-respect, because then you're looking and saying, this doesn't align with me. It's a great opportunity, but it doesn't align with me, and it's going to cost me too much to be a part of this organization, and I'll walk away. And similarly, as an organization, it means that you have to step up and be real about what is the culture of our organization. And hopefully, if you are honest about that and you recognize it's toxic, then that pushes you to start to change. Because the more that top talent is saying no to you, you're not going to have the opportunity to bring in the top talent. So you're going to have to make a change. So for you as an employee looking to be a part of our organization, you have to respect yourself enough to seek the environments that honor your values. And for you as an organization that's looking for top talent, you have to respect yourself to give the environment that allows for that.
Oh, I love it. I love what you said. And I think you've shared really practical things that organizations can do, starting with their leadership and then looking at the organization as a whole. One thing that I feel that is really useful for leaders, especially leaders where you have a team that works at different hours, not necessarily because they are in different time zones, but just because we all have different rhythms. One of the things that I can testify personally that I am working at doing better, right? A small behavior shift that I feel has really helped to support this idea of self-respect is to use the send later element of on emails. Because the truth of the matter is, we often preface as leaders our requests to our team by saying things like, I know that we all work at different hours. So if you get an email from me out of hours, just note that it's okay. You don't have to respond to it then. You can respond to it the next working day. But the truth of the matter is that receiving requests can bring about pressure for the individual, even if they know in principle they don't need to attend to them. It can also mean that it's now something that's on your team member's mind, especially in these days where we have emails on our phones. So that email you send through on a Sunday because you are prepping the week ahead can now be something that's playing on the mind of your employee. And so for me, I think a very easy workplace norm that we can rethink is this idea that I will send when it's convenient for me, when we can utilize tools that allow me to still do the work when it's convenient for me, but ultimately send it out when it is fair for the team to receive it. And so I do this a lot because I tend to end my day so that I can do the school run. And so I'm usually finished by about 3 o'clock. But that means I have another hour and a half of work that I want to complete. And so I will then, once the kids are back, they're settled, it's after working hours, I'm now catching up, right? So maybe my window is around 6:30 to 7:30, for example. And because I'm based in Nairobi, 6:30 to 7:30 for me, I'm based in Cape Town, 6:30 to 7:30 for me is 7:30 to 8:30 for my team. So that's a little late to be sending messages. And so what I just do is set it to send in the morning. And so I think that there are some little things that we can do that may seem so little, but they make a really big difference. Because it's not enough to just tell people that, hey, you can respond when you feel like it. We can also, well, not when you feel like it, you can respond when it's more appropriate. We can make it easier for them to do. Wow. I am always amazed at how quickly our time
Let me just
flies
add one
by.
quick
Yes,
thing.
Susan. Yes, Susan. Go ahead. Yes.
Sorry. You know, and my age is going to show here. So when I started working, we would leave the office, and when you leave the office, the desktop stays in the office. I mean, only the very
Yes.
senior
Yes.
members of the organization had mobile phones, and you would actually plug off. So unless the office building was literally burning, the day would have ended, right?
Yeah.
And that created for some balance and some boundaries by the nature of where we were at in terms of technological advancement. But what we
Mm.
can apply now to kind of replicate that is a lot of organizations, when you are on leave, or not a lot, a number of organizations, when you're on leave, it blocks you from the system.
Mm.
Blocks you from the system, so that even as as those emails are continuing or alerts are happening, you actually cannot log on. And putting those kinds of spaces as an organization, or putting in kind of those systems as an organization, you start to promote that kind of healthy
Mm.
self-respect, practice of self-respect. So put in things
Yeah.
like lock the system
I
that
like
protects.
that.
Even if you
Yeah.
want to do time, if you say that at this time we want all our team members to not be focusing on work, do it. So use the systems. I love what you said.
Mm.
Use the systems that are available to create the environments that will promote self-respect.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mo, I want to come to you. Again, we're talking about the practical application because we want people to go away with insights that we'll use. So we've talked about this from the organization perspective and from the leader perspective through you, Susan. So now let's just talk about it from an individual perspective. What's one small mindset or behavior shift that you often encourage that helps people to move from people pleasing to self-respect? Earlier, we talked about the fact that oftentimes we go or we step outside of our boundaries because we're trying to get that approval. So, what's a small mindset or behavior shift that can help someone to move from people pleasing to really respecting self so that you can set those boundaries? And
Okay.
just as you're answering that, Mo, just sharing another feedback question in the chat. Sorry to interrupt you, Mo, but I'm looking at the time and it's flying by. Here's another scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is yes, you would highly recommend. How likely are you to recommend this webinar to a No, I think I've asked that one. Sorry.
Yeah.
How valuable, how valuable on a scale of 1 to 5, how valuable has this content been for you, where 5 is completely and totally valuable? So please share your comments on that on a scale of 1 to 5 in the chat as Mo answers the question. So Mo, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And actually, it's interesting because from both my background in business and my experience now as a coach, when we talk about self respect, we cannot differentiate between self respect at work and at life. Self respect is self respect, it's something goes everywhere. And again, back to the beginning of self respect, where we can gain it from confidence. What is against confidence? Doubt. What is doubt, or where is doubt
Mm,
coming from? In most cases, doubt is coming from ourself, from
mm,
the inner self. We sometimes in the morning, like we said, like, oh, we look awful, what people would think about us. But if you go on the street, no one will think about you. So if we are talking about small practice, I highly recommend, and that's when I work with my clients, I highly recommend about work on your inner voice. Deal with inner voice. And the best way is create some daily routine of reflection.
mm,
Talk to yourself as the third person. Reflect on what you want to do, what is preventing you from this, and go on. So this is in very, like, it's another big topic for discussion, but I always encourage my clients, including myself, to work on your inner voice, to
yeah.
increase your confidence, to improve your self-respect. And again,
Mm.
not only at work, work, life, everywhere.
I love it. I love it. And I think Mohammed and Susan, and I mention you two only because I know we work in this space of emotional intelligence. But I'm sure, Joseph, you would agree with my point. This inside work is the most critical work that we can do. This inside work, it's messy, it's uncomfortable, but it is the most critical work that we can do. Far too often, we are what stands between us and the goals that we're trying to achieve. Part of that is the inner critic that you speak to, Mo, the words we say to ourselves. It has been said that if we could record ourselves speaking to ourselves, we would be shocked to hear what we tell ourselves, right? We would be shocked because we would not speak to ourselves the way that we would not speak to others the way that we speak to ourselves. And so I think the point you make is so true, Mo, that we must do this inner work and this ability to set those boundaries and have that self-respect is directly proportional to the work you've done on yourself, because you can only have that confidence to set boundaries with a leader who is demanding more than what they should, if you have that confidence in self and in your value. And I really like what you say more about the idea that it's both for work and for life. And I think that's the thing about the EQ work that we advocate. It's life that supports you for work, but it's also life that supports you for life. Joseph, before I come to you, I know earlier, and I think that the team have shared it on the comments, but I noted earlier there was a comment from Barnabas about partnering with us to train organizations on psychological safety. We currently have a call for consultants. So if you are a consultant and you are interested in working with PTS and joining us in the work that we do, which is really just to transform organizations across the African continent, then you can reach out to us. We're going to share the link in the comments so that you can have a look at our call for consultants. We are currently in a recruiting phase. As Joseph comes, I'm going to ask him a question as well, just to remind you all, if you are here in the comments, please do tell us on a scale of 1 to 5, how valuable has this content been to you, 5 being extremely valuable. Joseph, let me come to you. Again, we are looking at the practical side of things, right? We're looking at how to apply what we've discussed practically. When you are unsure whether to speak up, push back, or say yes, what helps you decide in a way that protects your self-health, your self-respect? What helps you decide whether it's speaking up, a pushing back, or saying a yes,
Thank
so
you
that
again,
you
Mucha.
protect your self-respect? Yes, yes.
Thank you again for that wonderful question. I mean, you've just ended by talking about the conversation you have within yourself as a person. If we were to record the conversation we have by ourselves, we'll even wonder what really is happening. Now, for me, I have 3 questions that I ask myself whenever I'm in such a situation. Am I responding from growth or from fear? Another question, will this build my future or just manage my image when you're talking
Ooh.
about identity? The third question is, am I honoring my values? Remember, Susan talked about the
Mm,
value, or avoiding discomfort. If fear is driving the decision, then self respect is usually being compromised. And in my opinion, sometimes self respect means saying no,
mm,
but often it means having an setting clear expectation and asking for support instead of silently on. Let me finish by talking about personality, because we have to look at different personalities, how they come in leadership. What is your
mm,
personality? There are people who, when they are pushed to the corner, they cannot speak, and it's difficult for them, and you need to help them. And these are the questions that run in their mind. If I respond, will this my image? How will this? They've never been in such a space before, and so we need to look at it. That if you have a conversation with yourself whenever you are in pressure, and this affects most people in applying for jobs, we say that we can work under pressure, and yet now this is practically how do we do it? Because you reach at a point where your boss has to be, or your manager has to be hard on you, speak back, so you push back. So you
mm,
need to understand, am I from growth or from fear, or am I building my future when I speak back, or am I just managing my image? Remember, if you just manage your image, it will grow, it will
mm,
not last long. It will just be for that moment. So out of emotion, and not a good leader is the one who is able to say no when it needs to be said, because that's being yourself.
mm.
And so it means you will have an honest conversation. So that is my how I look at it whenever you are pushed back.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you very much. I'm seeing a few comments I want to come to here, and I'm then going to come to each of you for your parting shot. I can't believe the time has gone. It's crazy how time has gone. So here's the question for your parting shot. If our audience were to commit to one self-respect practice that they are kicking off this February, what would positively impact how they lead and work? What would you suggest and why? So this is your parting shot question. I'm going to see if we can actually project it so that everyone else can see the question that we are asking. Um, excuse me. And then all right, just give me a minute. Let's see if we can actually project this question. So this is the parting shot, and we're going to come to that. It's amazing to me, like I said, how time just flies by. So if our audience were to commit to one self-respect practice this February that would positively impact how they lead and work, what would you suggest and why? So that would be your parting shot that you will share. But before I come to your parting shots, let me have a quick look at the comments that have come through as well. There's some really good comments that are here, and I want to share some of them. Let me scroll back. So Steffi says, Susan, I love the idea of people being blocked from the system when they're on leave. It's such a great initiative to help those who struggle with the boundary of working on leave. And then Jane Duta says, based on the question that Susan is responding to, so again, it was a question around boundaries and what organizations can do differently. Using my own experience, one of the best way forward is having a well-designed and agreed performance work plan, and with indicators followed by regular or weekly reviews with your first reporting supervisor. Thus, your supervisor will not come back to accuse you. Always insist on written and discussed work plan and with performance indicators on a regular basis. Thank you very much for that, Jane. I can see that we have a number of fives, people saying that the conversation has been extremely valuable. It has been extremely valuable for me, who is the moderator. It has been awesome. Mohammed says, thank you, Mo. As always, you emphasize the importance of work-life balance in every context. It's clear that this is something many leaders still overlook. So thank you very much for that comment. So as I come to you all to share your parting shot, allow me to also share a final feedback question to the audience. What has been your biggest takeaway from today's session? I actually wanted to ask, I actually wanted to say to Joseph, can you just repeat those 3 questions you ask yourself? Because those 3 questions were fire. So maybe for you it was those 3 questions that Joseph talked about. Perhaps for you it's what Mo has been emphasizing, this idea that you must do that inner work to listen or pay attention to what it is that you're saying to yourself. Perhaps, as Susan said, you as a leader are thinking about the practical steps that you can take to support your team. So that you can not only model self-respect, but you can cultivate an environment for them to do so as well. I don't know what it is for you, but please take a moment to type it in the comments. What has been your biggest takeaway from today's session? As I come to my panel to talk about one practice, shall we say we start with our youth first? I know we often say ladies first. Let's go youth first. Joseph, share with us your thoughts on this question, on something that people can do practically that will positively impact how they work. Over to you.
Thank you. I'm a young person who just got married 8 months ago. And so I also bring skills of leadership even in the house. Now, my parting shot of the day is just what I've experienced now in the last 8 months in leading now the family. You should pause before you agree. Don't answer from pressure. Don't decide from fear. You know, just create a space to think. Reflect and choose intentionally, because self-respect begins in that pause, in that moment where you choose value over urgency. Is it urgent? Should I answer immediately? When you pause, you actually create powerful leadership habits. That's what I'll tell everyone.
I love it. I love it. One of the things that we share, one of the quotations that we share often is a quotation by Viktor Frankl that says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. I love that quotation. That's exactly what you're talking about. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. So take that space. Thank you very much for that. Mo, let's come to you and then we'll end with the lady in the house. Mo,
Okay.
what's your parting thought?
I will keep it short because I know we're running out of time. So just for everyone on the call, be yourself, not anyone else. And forgive me, I'm gonna borrow a sentence from the Bible, and forgive me if I don't have it right. But when Jesus said, "What if the man wins the world and lose himself?"
Yeah.
Just think about that. Thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you can't gain the whole world and lose yourself, right? As you chase after that, need for approval, as you bow to the pressure that can come from those workspaces that don't really give you the space to thrive. Powerful stuff. Susan, your parting shot.
That verse that you got is because I thought of it earlier when I was talking about you give so much and For what? To what end? Anyway, parting short, I'll try and make it short, which is not my strength. So, two stories. One, Moog shared a story about an antique watch, and it moved around from shop to shop and got different value. There's a just the concept of a 1,000 shilling note or a $10 note or a $100 note, whether it's crisp and clean or it's crumpled or it's muddy or it's wet, its value doesn't change. Okay.
Mm.
However, with that watch, depending on where it went, there was a different recognition of its value. So, my first part of your practice is one, know your value, and
Mm.
then two, identify the spaces where your value is recognized.
Mm.
Okay. And once you know your value and where it's recognized, you're able to then set up clear boundaries and that
Yeah.
protect that value that you are.
Yeah.
So you already probably know what it is, whether it's protecting your rest or saying no to unrealistic deadlines, walking away from what from outside looks like an amazing opportunity. Set that boundary that serves you. You already know
Mm.
what matters to you most once you understand what your value and your values are. And with setting those boundaries, that's your practical expression of your self respect. It will
Yeah.
signal to you and to others the standards that you're upholding, and it will protect your well being and your clarity. So
Mm.
that will make your not just your leadership, but your life more sustainable because you're
Yeah.
walking in authenticity.
Yeah. Oh man. There's never enough time. There's never enough time. Thank you so much to my panel. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Mo. Oh my goodness, thank you, Joseph. You guys have been on fire. I say this every month that somehow, okay, I shouldn't say somehow. Me, I believe these things are divine. It is divinely so that we end up with the right mix as far as a panel is concerned that just ensure that this is an amazing conversation. I can see a lot of key takeaways from the audience. Thank you very much for sharing your key takeaways. For those of you who may listen to this or watch this later, do just share what your key takeaway is, your biggest lesson. Mercy says, pay attention and deal with the inner voice. We have Wildest Dream says, from Mucha, don't start what you can't maintain. From Joseph, pause. Rhoda says, how to say no, focus on your growth, honor your values, and let it come from building your future and not managing your image. I like this. On health commitment, I learned that it's sustainable, while unhealthy commitment erodes our self-respect. And then Wildest Dream was giving a key takeaway from everyone. So from Susan, it's healthy commitment should energize. Barnes says, identify the spaces where your value is recognized. Muthoni says, not compromising on my values and integrity. And Sheila says, identify my value and setting boundaries by learning to say no. I think we can agree that today has been phenomenal. Thanks once again to my amazing panel. Let me say goodbye to each of you. We really appreciate you. And don't forget, you have links to their LinkedIn profile so that you can connect with each of them and continue to learn from them, because these are individuals who share their wisdom on a regular basis. So please do connect with them so you can continue to learn from them as you interact. So thank you, Susan. Thank you, Mo. And thank you, Joseph. You have been absolutely phenomenal. Today has been wow. As always, this session is just out of this world. Thank you very much for being with us today. It has been great to host you. Do make sure you diarize the last Wednesday of every month. Next month, we're going to be celebrating International Women's Day, and so we'll be having a conversation around the theme of International Women's Day. You may wonder, what's that got to do with emotional intelligence? Well, make sure you join us so that you can learn more. And I promise you, our panel will not just be women, because we believe in he, for, she. So we'll have a mixed panel once again, sharing their insights around how we can continue to support women in leadership and appreciate the women who have led us. There have been so many takeaways from my esteemed panel. I just want to really thank you all for staying with us, for engaging with us throughout. I want to highlight that we have a mental health workshop that's coming up in the month of April. That is for HR leaders and mental health champions. We also have our annual mental health conference coming up in May. So please do connect with us on our socials to find out more information about that. As we close today's conversation, we are reminded that self-respect is not something we announce. It is something we demonstrate through our daily choices, boundaries, and leadership presence. Leading with self-respect means recognizing our value without needing constant validation, protecting our energy without guilt, and making decisions that align with purpose rather than pressure. When we respect ourselves, especially as leaders, we model clarity, accountability, and psychological safety for others. I invite each of us to reflect on the one area where we might be overextending, remaining silent, or saying yes when alignment calls for something different. Sustainable leadership begins with small, intentional shifts. As you move into the weeks ahead, consider this question: what is one boundary or standard you will uphold to lead yourself and others with greater self respect? Thank you so much for joining this 52nd episode of the EQ Lunch and Learn. We really appreciate your presence, your engagement, and commitment to growing emotionally intelligent leadership across our workplaces and communities. One last feedback question: what topic would you like to hear us cover in future sessions? Please go to the comments and share, and you can continue sharing this as we move forward, or you can connect with us on our socials and let us know what else should we talk about on these EQ Lunch and Learns. For now, goodbye and have a absolutely wonderful rest of your day. It has been my pleasure to host you today. My